The Wild Beyond the Witchlight. Even after all of the changes that I made, was it still even worth it? Hi, hello, I am GM Turk from the Grouch Couch, and it is time to take a seat and roll for initiative. The Wild Beyond the Witchlight. This is not going to be a tutorial video on how to run this module, but this video is going to be talking about all of the changes that I made to this module, how it went, and how our campaign went overall. Just to see if this module is good at all, or if it should just be completely skipped in your lineup of modules that you plan on playing in the future. Let's do it. So we just finished our campaign of The Wild Beyond the Witchlight. You can check out our full live play of it to see how all of these changes went. You can check it out right here on YouTube. It's called Love, Death, and Dice, The Wild Beyond. Of course, it was full costume. I'm sure you've seen the thumbnails if you're familiar with what we do around here. Now, we're going to start off here right at the introduction. We're going to talk about all the changes that we made and kind of how my players approached this thing. We went into this system thinking we're going to do a Carnival Feywild experience. It's going to be wacky and whimsical and all that kinds of stuff like that. Is that how it went in practice? I don't really think so. There's a lot of other dark undertones and mysteries and intrigue that the players have to get through because this module is set up to be a completely non-battle encounter module, which I don't think my players were ready for. They tried, they did their best, and it's a fun idea. In practice, though, that means they have to ask more questions and do more investigation. So let's get started. So right up here at the top, we're going to be using D&D Beyond so you guys can see what we have going on. There are some really cool Fey backgrounds that are added to Dungeons & Dragons with this new module. A couple of our players were excited to use them, and they did actually use them, and they were fun to do. Like the Fey Lost, there's a Feywild visitor that comes to visit, and one of our players decided to have this stoner capybara visit them in their dreams, and that was a fun encounter to run a couple of times. So these backgrounds are actually cool. I do suggest you let your players come up with their own Feywild visitor that actually fits with their background and have them customize it. Now, when it comes to the lost things that their characters are going to be getting into, they have some suggestions here, like you lose, the ability to hand write. You can see here the ability to smile, stuff like that. I feel like a lot of these are limiting when it comes to role-playing, actually, so then they're going to have to role-play the idea that they can't smile or be creative throughout the whole campaign until they get their lost thing back. If you think your players can pull it off, go on ahead and do it. But also, I would say let your players come up with their very own lost thing that they might have gotten stolen from them if you decide to take this direction in the system. And by the way, I do say that you should take this direction in combination with something else that we'll get to later. But our players picked, they literally lost a person. It was a guide to them, someone who helped them. And the hags friggin' stole it from them. And also, our other character lost the ability to read, but that also entailed that they lost their intelligence. So once they got back their ability to read, their intelligence came back as well. So it was like a full package that we really enjoyed. So allow your players to come up with their own lost things, all right? And when it comes to down here, you can see there's like little items and stuff that kind of come with their lost items or whatever. Just kind of customize it, come up with something fun. I did like a loot, and then there was this scroll that had all of the fun intelligence stuff on it that the character read. So it was good stuff. Also, there is a Warlock's Quest in here that's supposed to be like, the other part. If your players don't want to have a lost thing, they can do the Warlock's Quest. The Warlock's Quest is fine, but the Warlock only shows up in the beginning, and then he's just gone for the rest of the campaign until they come back at the very end. And that's weird to me. I was like, okay, so he's not really important at all. So I think maybe he can help them get in and just plant some seeds, but I don't think he should be that pertinent throughout the whole story unless you plan on him giving the characters visions or something like that. That's the only way I kind of see this working out. What I did was I planted seeds in the beginning. There was a darkness taking over because the queen of the Feywild had been captured by said hags, which is kind of what the Warlock sends the players off on, right? But on top of them trying to find their lost things, they're killing these hags, so it also makes sense for there to be a build-up for them to help the queen escape and be free by the end, right? That just makes sense. They get to help the whole Feywild. So while they're going across the Feywild, there's all these other little things happening and people are suffering because the queen is trapped, right? And that's kind of what the Warlock sends them on in this quest, but there has to be a better way to do it. I just kind of planted seeds the whole time, and I had the Warlock mention it in the beginning that you got to go find his friend, and he's going to help them get into the carnival to get it started, right? That's pretty much how we did it. All right, now we're getting into the fun stuff. Again, I'm not going to tell tell you how to run this whole book, but what I will tell you is the changes we made. The Witchlight Carnival has a lot of stuff in it, okay? Dungeon Master to Dungeon Master, you're supposed to allow your players to go off and be free and do whatever the fuck they want inside of the Witchlight Carnival, which I did do. I think that that's fun, but that means that you, as the Dungeon Master, this is the hardest chapter to read and get through and have it good and go. So what I did was I just kind of read through all of the encounters and just kind of, you know, got familiar with them, but didn't know exactly how they ran. So during the actual session, I was kind of explaining the rules to the players as I was learning them too, and we did it together. If you prep every single one of these encounters, a lot of them are going to get ran. It's going to be a waste of time for you, so just think about that, okay? What you do need to know is the end game. Where does your players have to end up at the end, okay? So go to the very end of the chapter, read it that way, and see how that's going to go. Now for us, the end game is supposed to be like this big celebration. I don't remember the exact details about how, you know, they're supposed to crown the Witchlight Queen or King of the evening or whatever. So what I did was I put together like a stage performance, and whoever performed the best got to then be the Queen or King, right? Which allowed them to then have a meetup with the Witchlight owners, right? And the whole time I'm planning these seeds, they got to find a way to the Feywild. How do we get to the Feywild? Oh, and all the other NPCs are like, the only people who know are the Witchlight owners, Mr. Witch and Mr. Light. You got to find them. You got to talk to them. And then it's like, oh, the only way we can get to them and talk to them is by winning this championship and becoming the king or queen of said Witchlight Carnival, which then allowed them to have an interview and a dinner with Mr. Witch and Mr. Light. And then they were like, okay, if you want to go to the Feywild, we'll just take you there. You did a good job today. Everyone was really happy, and we'll do this for you. And then they just take them to the Hall of Illusions and let them go through. And if your players go to the Hall of Illusions first, plant some seeds that they're seeing some weird shit there, and then it might click later on, like, oh, hey, that totally makes sense now. And so that's how we did it. It was really streamlined. There's a lot of other stuff, if I remember right, in there that's kind of like complicated, but that's just the way we did it, and it was perfect. It was a lot of fun. The players got to play on this stage, and then they got to perform, and they got to win, and then they got to have a nice little dinner with Mr. Witch and Mr. Light to learn more about the carnival, whatever. And the character who had the Feywild background got to walk around in like the staff area and meet all of their old friends and stuff like that, so it was fun. Okay, so that's how we did it. Is that how you should do it? I don't know, but it was successful for us. And by the way, the snail racing was by far one of our favorite encounters that we had over inside of the Witchlight Carnival. It was really fun, but only 2 of our players raced, and the other players just sat on the stalls and cheered for our players. If one of your players doesn't want to race or be involved, let them sit at the stalls and then cheer for your players and use like Bardic Inspiration or Bless or whatever, and let them cheer and make a performance check to then assist one of the players that is racing in the race. It was a lot of fun because one of the players was rooting for only one of the other players and helping them try and win this dang race. It was a lot of fun. And let the person riding on top of the snails, let them come up with ideas on how they're boosting their snails. One of our players decided to give some, some dust, some magic fairy dust, or we called it divination crystals, to the snail to help him run faster. And it was just a lot of fun. So definitely our favorite encounter. Make sure if you can run this one. One other bit before we move on to Hither. There's no way your players are going to get to every single location inside of the carnival. Again, it's not going to happen unless you plan on spending 5 3-hour sessions just at the carnival, which you could do because it's one of the funnest parts of this book. We only spent 2 3-hour sessions there, and it was perfectly fine, although I wish there was more carnival stuff in this book. I just do. There's not enough of it, and I'll talk about how I brought it back later. I mean, the book is called The Wild Beyond the Witchlight, so it's like what happens after the Witchlight, which is fine. But on the front, it's the 2 carnival leaders. There should be hags here instead, because we were all under the impression it was going to be all carnival. It's not. It's all Feywild, okay? Okay, we're on to chapter 2, Hither. Hither's pretty fun. It's the first area your players are going to step into, right? You know this. You've watched other tutorials. It's not what you're here for. I'm not going to be teaching you how to run this, just kind of like the changes that we made. The map is good. Show the map to the players. Make sure that you do that. Right away, when the players got in there, they got basically bum rushed by a bunch of herringons, and the way that I played that was that they're like mobsters trying to steal things, right? It's in the book, you can do that, but the players got to talk their way out of it, which is really good, and you're going to have that come back later on because it's going to be fun later on. Now, there's only one other main encounter the players got into here, and it's the tower with the balloon. That makes sense. There's a little dragon guy stuck in a cage. You're going to read about that. I made him like this super funny French guy guy and made him as involved as possible because he's a little tiny fairy dragon. It's the first, like, out-of-the-box thing your characters are going to encounter inside of the Feywild. So make him fun, make him super cool. I think there's a picture of him somewhere in this book, and it's just awesome. Now, going up the tower, there's like a dog they can get through, and also there's like this crazy spidery demon guy up there, and I made him heartbroken because he lost his thumbs because the hag stole it from him. That's what I did. I thought it was fun because then the players were like, oh, we'll help you get your thumbs back if you free our friend. And they're like, cool, that's a deal. Reciprocity. It all works out. Okay. Then there's like this walking hut that the players are going to run into. That's the first place they get to rest here. Right. So just have them nice and rest. Let the players come up with whatever they want. They had pie there, which was, pretty fun and stuff like that. So that's kind of how we ran it. Hither is kind of straight through. It's one of the easier chapters to run. It really is. There was like a shoreline we went through, but then we're going to get to the complicated part, which is the boss battle here in Hither. That's the complicated one. I'm sure it's what you want to hear about, so let's do that. Yeah. This guy, Sir Talavar. I love Sir Talavar. He's one of my favorite NPCs in this whole book. Just play him up. He's so good. You won't regret it. I love Sir Talavar. Okay, the Brigands Tollway. This is the boss battle of this here area. Your players are going to get here. They need to, there's the Harengon with the blue scarf and what have you. Really, there's a bunch of Harengon. And if you want to play an actual battle in this book, you can do it. They can fight the Harengon. It'll be good. As long as you have like a party of 5, it's going to be a long battle. Be prepared for that. Make sure your players are aware of that. Or you can get in there and allow your players to talk to the leader. Get in there. They got to talk to him. All right. Our players completely embarrassed the leader. They grabbed him by his scarf, and it was just... it was hilarious, which is an option in the book. They can grab him by his scarf and snatch him up, and they did, and they embarrassed him in front of his whole clan. And so his whole clan left. They were like, dude, you're not good enough. We're not going to follow you anymore. So now they're just off in the Feywild doing their stuff. But our players brought Agdon, this here guy, with them throughout the rest of the adventure, and kind of tried to help him too, get that scarf off of his neck because he's cursed to forever wear it, right? It was fun, but... this is like a big map. There's a big old map. There's a big old stump. There's a lot of things going on. You can play it step by step and walk your players through it. But again, it's going to take a long time. If you want to just have them show up on the boat, they get approached by the leader, and he's trying to embarrass them, and they embarrass right back. It's a good way to play it. But then you can go into battle. Right. There are some really good maps out there of this Trollway. You can give them a Google if you actually want to do the battle. I suggest you prep for it no matter what, because you don't know what your players are going to do. Yes, Foundry has some good maps, as well as Tailspire has some really good maps. There's also a map on Tabletop Simulator on Steam. Believe it or not, there is, and it's pretty fun. Okay, now to get to Downfall, they need to have a guide, right? They have to have someone get them through the clouds. I called it darkness in our game because the hags are bringing darkness because the queen has been captured, right? So they have to figure out a way to get through the darkness or the clouds to be able to get to Downfall. So Agdon can lead them right through. He can be the one to do it. Or you can have literally anyone say that they know the way, and they will join the party. Okay, you can have a talking mushroom, which are in here called campus trees, could be like, I know the way, and he could just help them get there. I had Agdon do it. He led them on a boat to Downfall, because Downfall is in a big old swamp full of a bunch of frog folk, and yeah, it just made sense that they captured Agdon and they got Agdon to do it. But you can have any one of the Herongons that they want to capture do that. If they kill all the Herongons, you can also just have a random mushroom take them through the way. They'll be in their boat when they go back to it, or whatever. It's real simple. Downfall! This is Chapter 3, was definitely one of my favorite bits that we did. Now, again, I'm not going to teach you how to do this, but it's really good. I had them show up and walk around. I gave them hints that all of the frog peoples were there doing their things, and there's also a scarecrow with a pumpkin head on the bridge. Don't forget about him because he's their new guide, and he will hint that he needs his old head back, and it's inside of the hag's cottage. Please get it for me, but you can't get over there. You have to go around to be able to get in there. Only certain people are allowed to get there. So go talk to the frogs first, right? Makes sense. So they go and talk to the frog people. They made a deal with them. And what I did was I actually had them join there if they wanted to agree to be able to get to the hags and stuff. All my players pretended to be royalty from a different land, which was hilarious. And the frog was like, look, if the frog king was like, if you want to be able to get over there, you need to be one of us, agree to be one of us, be a part of our stuff, and we'll crown you, right? So he's going to want to take them over to this crowning ceremony, and on the way they can encounter the big lightning balloon with all of the stuff or whatever. But in the midst of that, after they did all the crowning, he said time for a celebration of fighting, and it actually allowed one of our players who really wanted to fight by this point actually get in and fight one of the frog knights. And I actually added in a frog rebellion that was happening, and one of the frog knights was the leader of the rebellion. And before he died, he told the character, he was like, please go over there and free all of my frog people. And so instead of killing him, she actually sneakily didn't kill him, and so he can go do it himself while they deal with the hags. That was kind of their way of not dealing with that encounter, but it's a fun idea to have this frog rebellion happening because it's supposed to be frog politics the whole time. There's a lot of other stuff going on in Downfall if your players want to adventure around before they climb the clothesline to get over to wherever the hag is. There's a lot of other stuff, and they can venture around. And what I would say, past going around this top circle here, this one here, to be able to get over to this area, past going around here, because this is where our boat stops, if they want to go over here and do all this other stuff, I wouldn't read through all of this and prep all of this stuff beforehand, okay? Unless you feel like your players are just going to say fuck you and go a different way. Just prep all of this stuff. Prep all of this stuff. And also the encounter on D3, a lot of fun. The guy came out of the ground and my player sang to him. It's hilarious. Okay, so now we're to the Hag's Cottage. This is the boss battle of this chapter. It doesn't tell you where your players are supposed to start here. It just says they climb over the clothesline or whatever, and so I had them start here at B6 on, the outer edge, because it made sense on the map where the clothesline was going to, right? But you can start them pretty much anywhere. Now, this entryway with this pool and stuff, it's fine. There's like a magical mirror, but it doesn't really tell you where the magical mirror goes to. It just says it's a magical mirror. I didn't really understand it, so I just kind of improv'd on it a little bit. You can do whatever you want with the magical mirror inside of the pool of water. It's fine. My players didn't really want to interact with any of this stuff. They knew they were in the hag's lair. They wanted to find the hag. They wanted to get there. They wanted to, talk to her or kill her immediately. So this whole first level, they ended up skipping it. Now, for the second floor, as soon as they came up, they went up the secret entryway up to B7. As soon as they came up to this area, they immediately found the secret entryway that makes them really tiny, which I thought was so much fun. So I had them come out underneath the dresser, and they got to hear the conversation that the hag was having with the other secret person who's trying to steal from the hag, which is happening upstairs, right? And as soon as the players appeared, that secret person they were talking to just instantly disappeared, and the hag talked to him for a second, and then battle ensued almost immediately. But because they were tiny, I allowed the players to prep themselves, like kind of stand around the room and kind of get where they wanted to be before the battle started, and it made it really good. One thing I should add is encourage your players to search this room after they kill her instead of just running right upstairs, because inside of one of the cabinets is actually the cat to the other hag sister, and once they open it up, the cat comes to life, and it was hilarious. We did a speak with animals thing. It was one of my favorite encounters here, so make sure they do that. Now, upstairs, there's just like a bed and stuff, and there's a locked door that goes into her treasure room. You can put your first lost item inside of this treasure room. It's actually where I think you should put it. And I think there's something in the book about a big frog. They stick their hand in the frog and they can pull out one of their lost things. That's totally fine. Have them pull out the thing and do the thing. Make sure you have one of the lost things in the hag's area. Okay, if you have 3 players and there's 3 hags, include a lost thing in every single hag's lair. Okay, that's just what you want to do. If there's 4 players, the queen will have the final one at the end. Make sure it's the one that's least needed. Okay, other kinds of stuff. They actually caught the thief that was up there and talked to the thief and persuaded her to hang out for a little bit. It was nice. So you could also put the thief there. Nice. So once that's done, they go back to the scarecrow. They can hop on the balloon, and then the scarecrow guy's into the next area. We're doing it. Chapter 4. Let's go. Now, this is the one that I changed the most. I changed Tither the most out of all of them. There's a lot of stuff going on in Tither that I just felt like didn't need to be going on. So, our players get into Tither, the balloon crashes, right? They meet the guy who's cursed with the gold inside of the cave. He kind of gives them a little bit of insight as to what's going on and guides them to the big giant tree with all the orphans, okay? You get to the orphans, right? And then the guy, Will, is actually secretly a demon or whatever it's called. I don't know. He's basically a demon. And so he's the one taking care of the kids because he's been reverse cursed to love and take care of kids, right? So that's what you got to kind of get them to know and know about and stuff. Now, we had a lot going on over here, but there is a baby Displacer Beast kitten that you should absolutely let your players take and keep with them for the rest of the encounter. And they will have a chance to return it later. We'll get to that in the final chapter when I bring back the Carnival, okay? They get over to Will, they meet the kids, do all this stuff. And then Will's supposed to guide the players to go to the lake to talk to the unicorn, right? So they have to get inside of the lake and do the things. The kids can actually, you can have them to do nice things for the kids. The kids can actually make them fake unicorn outfits to be able to get in there. Our players painted their, I had an owlbear encounter beforehand. They painted their owlbear into a unicorn and rode it into the lake. It was fine, okay? Now, once they get into said lake, make sure you play up everything because it's this magical, crazy lake. You need to play it up. There's like a little bit of explanation. The unicorn just kind of shows up. You need to be like, the wind swirls in the lake and there's friggin' all this stuff going on. It's crazy. Do that, and then let them talk to the unicorn to learn that they need to find his husband, which in turn, the husband is inside of the other hag's lair that they're about to get to after this, right? And this plants the very first seed that they need the unicorn horn to be able to make it into the Palace of Heart's Desire because his horn has been stolen or taken or whatever. Yes. And we're going to talk about where that should be. This book gives you a lot of options as to where the heck the unicorn horn should be. I'm just going to tell you directly where it should be with my change. Okay, so if they meet up with the unicorn, they can go back to the orphanage, or they can just go directly to the hag's area. If you want to do the random encounter before that, please go on ahead and feel free to do so, but I let my players rest on the shore of that pond before they went, which is good. So, I had Will and his whole band of miscreants tell the players that they were going to attack the same time that they showed up, and all he had to do was give some kind of a signal to let them know. They were going to attack the outside while the players went in the inside, okay? And whenever you get to this final hag's lair, it is kind of like there's a lot going on here. Yes, Loomlurch, there's a lot going on here, but just have them go to the goblin stalls first. Like, that's the way that they approach. You can give them options, but if they go to the goblin stalls first, it makes sense because they can talk to the goblins, see what the fuck's going on, and see how to get inside. Then you have one of the goblins help them inside. And they can literally go right and talk to the hag. And then if they talk to the hag well enough, the hag will just walk them through to the back, right, showing them around what's going on while Will and all of his friends are attacking on the outside, okay? And you can be like, you see out the windows, Will and all his kids are attacking the, all the other monsters and stuff. It's great. Now, once they get to the very back, that's when battle should occur because one of the goblins, what I did is the goblin is actually in love with one of the kids that she has captured, and he wants to see that kid set free. But the only way for that kid to be set free is once they get to the end, they meet the kid in the kitchen, and the kid is chained to the table. But who has the keys? The hag does, right? So they got to get the keys from the hag, and if they miss their sleight of hand, they're going to attack the hag, and they're going to fight inside of the kitchen, which I thought was fun because the fire spirit inside of the stove can actually come out of the stove if someone's smart enough to do it and then attack. There's also a secret latch inside of the kitchen that if players can see it, they can flip it open, and all those like knights will come out of the secret hatch that have been trapped there for years because the hag forgot about them. It's fun, okay? It is definitely a super fun encounter. What I will say, there's so much going on here, it can really kind of feel overwhelming. Like, holy crap, there's so many of these doors. If you want to do a hex crawl for this one, do it, okay? But if you just want to roleplay it, narratively push through, that's what we did, and it was great, okay? Also, you don't forget to throw in the rocking chair horse, okay? After all that's said and done, they get back, they hop back on the balloon if you want to keep the balloon, okay? And then their new guide, the oil can, leads the way. It's just the oil can. They're all references to, the Wizard of Oz. That's really what it is, but you could make it whatever you want. You could make all the guides references to some other thing that your players might think is interesting. Okay, we've made it through into Yon. All right, Yon is the darkest place here in the Wild Beyond the Witchlight. It's super dark. I'm going to talk about the changes that I made this one. It's one of the more fresher kind of encounters I have in my head right now. The changes that I made, a lot. Yeah, so right away, they meet up with the dandelion and the person. That's great. Let them do that. That's the first encounter. Then after that, they're supposed to encounter rock people doing rock people things, and they're like dancing around, and they have a rival rock people clan that they're fighting with. Dude, I don't know. And the whole way they explained that encounter didn't make sense to me, but I was like, oh, maybe I'm tripping. I still try to run it while we were live, and my players didn't like it. I could tell it wasn't good. Don't even do it. Do something else. What I did was I made an encounter for one of my players here in Yon. It was because there was a Feywild background here, I made one of their little cities from the Feywild that this is where it's located. And I just had that whole episode kind of dedicated to that player and learning their background and having some fun. Because by this time in the campaign, you're towards the end, baby. So it's time to learn a little bit more and go into way more depth with at least one or two of your characters. So just skip that one and do that. And then, instead of the rock people coming to help in the theater for the hag attack, you could have the town that's actually connected to one of your players come and help if that's what they feel like they need to do. They can also learn information of how to get there and everything else like that. So make them walk up the rocks in the rain, and it's super creepy. And then there's a town and like a little, area that they can make it to. And oh shit, it's the player's town. Oh, I know this area. You do, yes, you're from here. But there is a couple of fun things that they're supposed to go into inside of Brigand Rock Mine that I think if you want to, you can include, like this this little fairy guy who he's like a merchant stall on top of a horse. It's right up here behind my head. Really good. And I think you should include it in the town. You should, because it's one of the funner kind of areas. Okay, one of the final chapters here, Motherhorn. Here we are. This is the third hag's hut hideout area. Okay, it's in a castle that has a theater on top of a mountain. The book says your characters can arrive there any way that they want to, except by the balloon, because there's lightning and thunder. So truthfully, you can come up with whatever you want. Give them climbing gear to climb the side of the mountain. You could have a walkway that walks up to the fucking front door if you want to. It's literally fine. It's not that important. What is important is everything that happens inside of Motherhorn. Now, there's a lot of this. It can get a little bit overwhelming, especially if you look at the map, but don't let it overwhelm you. What we did is we just went right into the theater. I had the hag sitting in the audience above in a balcony. And the hag was talking down to the players, like, if you want anything from me, you need to perform for me and do well, because the performance section in this chapter is good. It's the best part of this chapter. It's the only thing I think you should for sure keep in. Having the players read these random lines and do all that other stuff is so much fun. So right away, just have them go inside and get led by a goblin to the hag in the theater. All right. Once they're in the theater, the hag's like, if you want something from me, do some deep, dark dialogue and be like, fine, we'll come to an agreement of reciprocity. I'll give you back the thing that you've lost if you manage to perform well for me. If you do not perform well for me, then I will kill you and take you and all of your friends, because this lady is powerful. And by this time, your players should not be fighting and attacking and killing her. They should not. She is very strong, and she has 500 goblins to come and attack too. Okay. So let them perform. It's the funnest bit. Then after they perform, she can give them a key to a back room, which will then allow them to explore, okay? And you can run as much of that as you want to. I just did a crazy magical hallway that led them right to the room that they needed to be in, which was the marionette room. Super creepy. You should use that one if you want to, all right? And if one of your players decides to maybe not, or maybe have a person that was taken from them, a lover, a brother, a sister, a father, make them have had turned into a marionette, and they're trapped in that room as a marionette, and the only person that can make them not be a marionette anymore is the queen, who has been trapped in the Palace of Heart's Desire. So they have their thing back, but they still got to go to the queen to get the marionette saved. That's what I did. Perfect. The final chapter! After your players deal with that and get the thing back, you can have the balloon pick them up from Motherhorn and take them to the Palace of Heart's Desire, because Dandelion's already there and already ready to take them. Cool. It's basically the lion from The Wizard of Oz. So, we're here now. We're at the Palace of Heart's Desire. On the front lawn of the Palace of Heart's Desire, the Carnival is there. The Carnival is a multiversal traveling carnival that goes anywhere. This is their final stop for the year. They come back here to have a crew meetup just of all their favorite people so they can enjoy themselves for one final day at the Carnival. Let the players go back into the Carnival. If they have the Displacer Beast kitten, they can give it back to the Displacer Beast mother. They can go around and finish any rides that they wanted to finish. This is a finale, baby, and it's all about the Carnival, so let them go back in. Additionally, the unicorn horn they've been searching for all along has been at the Carnival, with one of the people they connected with at the Carnival those first couple of episodes. They see them. They hear about the fact that they've been looking for it and says, hey, we have it. Or they walk by a stall and they see it as a reward prize that they have to win now at the Carnival, okay? The horn has been there the whole time, and they've needed it the whole time. It's what you should do, so do it, okay? They get to spend a couple more days there, all right? Maybe they meet up with Mr. Witch and Mr. Light, who then gives them a little bit of guidance on the Palace of Heart's Desire, or someone else they're connected with, all right? They can ask them questions. Now that they've been all around, they're back at the beginning, and we always end right where we began. That's good storytelling. Okay. There's a huge map of the Palace of Heart's Desire. There's a lot going on. There's 2 different levels to it. If you want to hex crawl it, baby, by all means, do it for a finale, okay? If you want it to be more narrative driven, have your players go through the front door and walk right into the throne room where the queen is. And all of these little circle thingies here, you see them on this map here? All of these little circles right here are statues that the big bad person, the hags, whatever it is, turned into statues from people. So the queen has been turned into a statue and frozen in time. And by the way, there's supposed to be something about a cauldron this whole time that the hags have been using. I didn't even touch that. Didn't even care. They're just strong and powerful, and they're being led by someone else who happened to be one of the player's fathers. That's what I did. And he has the ability to turn people to stone, and so that's what he's done. He turned them all into statues. And it was great, because they got to fly around these statues, these people they've been hearing about that have been trapped and turned into stone, the queen, whatever. And then once the guy's dead, the queen comes back to life because the curse is broken, etc. And the queen can help the marionette and remove the curses and do all this stuff. Perfect. Right. But if you want to hex crawl this thing, there are some really fun little monsters, like bronze statues and fairies and other kinds of stuff inside of the Palace of Heart's Desire that you should do. If your players like hex crawls and a lot of damage and a lot of fighting, do it that way. But if you're more narrative driven and you want to play this finale up and spend 4 hours just in the throne room, do that as well, okay? That brings us to our finale. That brings us to pretty much the end here. What are my final thoughts on The Wild Beyond the Witchlight? My final thoughts. There wasn't enough whimsical stuff in this book. We went into this thinking it was going to be whimsical and funny and fairy-like, and it wasn't. It was a classic D&D adventure about evil and overcoming that evil. That's literally what it was, and that's fine, but that's not what we thought it was. Maybe that's marketing. I don't know, okay? But it was a fun book. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I think that that's fine. There was a lot that I had to change, but the theme was cool. And the backgrounds were cool. Also, the new little monsters in here were pretty dang cool. But other than that, I don't know. I feel like you could take this book and then build on it and make your own whimsical, fun stories that fit within the narrative. But it doesn't really provide you of that many itself, all right? The hags are cool. The ideas are cool. It's fine. We finished this whole book in 13 2.5-hour sessions. All right, it's 13 episodes. You can watch the whole thing on the same playlist that this is about. Link in bio if you want to check it out. Also, we got a drive-through RPG link you can use to pick up this book to help support the show if you want to. Yeah, wow, what an adventure. I think this is going to be one that I will remember forever, if that counts for anything. It's pretty fun, but it wasn't perfect. So if you're prepared to brainstorm and change a lot, you should run it. If not, I would say skip it. That's my 2 thoughts. I'm GM Turk from the Grouch Couch. Thank you so much for taking a seat and rolling initiative with me. I'm going to get out of here, and I'll see you next time for the next module. Bye-bye.